Hello everybody. In this demonstration I'm going to go over three things. Once, when you have glued all of your pieces down on your glass, you can start assembling it and start cutting these out a little more fine. And then I'm going to go over how to, once everything is cut, to how to use a kind of this mat board remnant to square in your design. Because your most important lines that are on here is this line and this line. They have priority on everything, okay? Because when we frame this, we need to have a nice clean edge on here. I'd much rather sacrifice a gap, that's in here somewhere versus not when you kind of start working on this, okay? So looking at the design, that was flipped. First off, when you have this, remember the last video I talked about gluing these down and cutting these out. This is what you don't want to do, because the student that did this just made twice as much work for them. So when they could have got the project done in like maybe 4 days, I'm sorry, if they could have got the project done in 2 days, it now took 4. Because they have this cut here, cut here, cut here, but now they have to recut everything again. Because when you square in your design, when it's all these like 5 or 6 pieces that are in here, you don't go between the shapes comfortably. You want to go right up to this edge. Because she could have, when she did this, ran her cutter up through here and then through here and then this way to get the piece out. And then she also did the piece at the same time. Because this piece here should have been put in this corner, unless this area right here where the wispiness is at, and she really wanted that. There's so much waste on this outside, okay? And again, stained glass gets super expensive. This should have been glued down in the corner. She would have saved herself a ton of work by having that up in that corner instead, kind of thing. So it's extremely, and I cannot stress that over and over and over enough times to make sure that when you have multiple pieces on a stained glass, so if this was the glass you wanted, you could put like 2 or 3 pieces on here. You keep them right next to each other with a gap, enough that you can put that runner through, or your glass cutter through there, and are using the existing edges as part of your design. And you cut that out. That is so important because it literally shaves days off your project, okay? Once you have all that done, then, and I'm just talking about kind of like a rough cut of that, then you start building this, okay? Because you're going to have to replace a few of your pieces depending on how good it is. So the way that you start building it is you start in this corner. So this piece right here is the first one you cut. And then with this design, this one would be the next one, and then next. So you start here and you work your way out. Because then you can kind of adjust your glass, a little bit as you start building this out, okay? The second part is as you start assembling these and you start breaking these a little bit more as you start building that out with that, you're probably going to have to replace a few of your pieces, okay? Because you might end up breaking that. And the way that you would do that, just by looking at this one, is that, say for instance, number 11 on mine broke, okay? So you had that piece of the paper part that you glued down, broke. You can't salvage that paper because it was glued down on there, but you still have your map. And what you need to do is you need to grab a scrap sheet of paper. It's on my desk. You might have to do this branch in this case. You might have to go over this with Sharpie so you can see it better. But you take another sheet of paper, like a scrap paper, you set it over top of that. You might want to use the light table we have in class, and you want to redraw that shape and then cut that out with the X-Acto blade, and that's how you have to kind of fix it, okay? On occasion, you'll have to do that. Now, as I start building this up, I'm going to start noticing some gaps. So we have kind of a massive gap right here that we'll have to try to deal with. In this area, I don't think there was an issue. This one's kind of sliding around on me a little bit. But sometimes you need to try to center a piece so you don't have a super strong line on one side than on another. And this isn't going to be perfect. This is your first one, okay? But if you have the ability, sometimes on some of these, like this piece right here, this is too big, and it doesn't go out all the way to the outside here. Something like this really does need to be redone. okay, because it's going to be causing some other issues. So then you ask yourself, well, how do I fix that? Something that you would end up doing is sometimes, like with you have to decide on which piece you would use to recut. Okay, so this one has a little bit of an issue on two fronts. One is that you have this gap right here. So I would almost break it off right in this area, and then recut another piece here and just have another solder and just have a solder line. Unless she's able to recut this entire piece, which is a lot to ask because there's so many things that are connected to that piece. Okay, so more than likely what I would do on this one is I might have like another break that kind of makes sense. Even having a line, I'm looking at this as a branch, having a line going this way, so it's like an extension of this branch, and that makes sense, and then just recut this shape right here. Now then you also have this big gap, so this piece here, if you have the glass, this piece here would have to be recut because this gap is just too big. So what you would have to do is I would draw this out on paper, so take this off and just use this and just trace the outside edge of it. And then you kind of have to guess where that is at. Cut that shape out, set that shape as a paper copy over top of that to see if it fits. If it does, then you have your shape that you need. And you might want to make two of them just in case when you're cutting it, it breaks and you don't have to kind of go through that process all over again. So you might want to make a copy of yourself. So one of the things I'm looking for are gaps. If you have a lot of gaps on there, that's when your grade drops and your design doesn't look as good as you're doing it. So you start building this in this corner out. Once you're done with that, I'm going to pull these pins. We need to square it in. So all your pieces are cut. I'm going to grab one of these mat board remnants. I have about 4 or 5 of them, kind of depending on your size that you have on this project. You just have to find the one that fits the best. So maintaining a straight line this way and a straight line this way are really important. So what I would do is I would push that glass, I'd kind of keep this still, push that glass up, and even though it creates some other gaps in here, this is a very, 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 very important line. Flip this around, get this one set as well, and then that's good. Once I have that, then I can take these T-pins and establish my outside line like you saw it was before. And I go all the way outside here. Then I know it's perfectly square, okay? Very important. Once you have that done, look inside here. Think of how much time you have left in class to work on the project. Think if you have any glass left over that you can still use, and then you want to see if you can start filling those gaps in. It's your first one, okay? Most people get like A's and B's unless you completely don't do the project, and then you start getting C's, D's, or F's depending on how far you got on it. But this one, even though it has some large gaps on it, this one would still be an A. It might be an A minus kind of thing, but it would still be an A because there's a lot of good things that are going on in this piece still. There's a few things that she needs to work on by all means, but it's your first one. Okay, if you're still getting these kind of gaps and you've done like 3, 4, 5 of them, then we should probably have a talk about your future as a stained glass artist, that kind of a thing. Because at that point you should know how to cut things out a little bit better. But it's your first one, so again, I'd be a lot more lenient.